Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Brewery Underground Podcast. I'm Steve Sullivan, joined, of course, again this week by the man himself, the Chancellor of Craft Beer, Scott Touron. And Scott,
Woo.
how the heck are you, man?
Man, I am good. I'm good. Did you see the Titan story that Will Levis will now be the starting quarterback for the rest of the year?
This is what we call breaking news in Nashville. It actually broke at the time we're recording this. It actually
Yeah.
broke a couple of hours ago because we're recording this on Tuesday, November the 7th, and so this actually broke just a couple of hours ago. And you and I, we talked about on our first podcast. We are sports fans. Neither one of us are like passionate Tennessee Titans fans, but we do root for the Titans. We want them to win. But it's funny because we'll talk about our brewery adventures that we had over the weekend, but we were out with friends and this was one of the subjects. We were talking about, hey, what happens if Will Levis is doing a really good job, which he has in 2 games? Will they start him over Ryan Tannehill?
Yeah, and I think you might as well. I mean, what do you got? It's not going to be Malik, and I'm not sure when Tannehill's coming back, if he's going to be healthy this week or not. But yeah, they made the right move. Let's see what we got out of this guy. Drafted him 33rd. Hey, let's see what we got. We got nothing to lose.
Definitely, definitely. Well, it is one of the bigger announcements that a football team can make because you have basically what? New ownership or a new coach, and then now you have a new starting quarterback for the NFL in the Tennessee Titans of Will Levis. So we'll have to see exactly what happens there. I got to tell you, and we haven't talked about this that we were going to discuss on the podcast, but this week has been a little good and a little bad for me, a little somber because I'm a big Major League Baseball fan. And the World Series ended last week with the Texas Rangers. So now we have to suffer through no baseball, Scott, as I know you're a baseball fan too. We have to suffer through till about March.
Well, the Yankee season was over a couple of weeks ago, so for me it was over. Baseball season has been over. Yeah, I didn't really keep up with the World Series, which is kind of a shame as being a baseball fan, but I don't think most of the country kept up with it either. Hence the low ratings for the
Very
thing.
true.
But congrats to
Very
the
true.
Rangers, but it's college football season. College basketball has just started. I'm excited about that.
College football and college basketball. And college basketball just started last night. So I gotta love that. The other thing that it always seems like it comes in the same week though, where Major League Baseball ends and daylight savings time begins. Like we're recording this around 6 o'clock in the evening, and it's been dark outside already for an hour. And I'm telling you, this is just bogus, man.
Yeah, if I fall asleep, I don't know if there's any way to wake me back up. I don't know if you can send a sharp signal or something if I crash on here during it.
All
No,
right.
man, I'm good. Yeah, it does suck.
Well, with that, we're going to talk about our brewery adventures that we had over the weekend. And by the way, you can follow us at our website at Sullivan Touron Brewery Adventures.com, where you can find a lot of great information concerning all things craft beer, along with our blogs and, of course, listening to our podcast. So, Scott, talk a little bit about our adventure this weekend, where we began, where we went, and what we did.
Yeah, we started out at Elmo Rose off of Charlotte, which I guess is the Sylvan Park area, which is known for their craft burgers and craft beer. They don't make anything, but they've really got a really good menu selection. Uh, Great space, indoor, outdoor. Started there. Had to get a little baseline
Yes.
of food before we got started. Before we got started going to the breweries for the day.
Well, I love Oktoberfest season, and I had the Claw Hammer Oktoberfest at ML Rose, and certainly loved it. And I've had that before, and certainly a fantastic beer.
Yeah. I had the what did I have? I had something Oscar Blues hazy something. And then they had the old speckled hen nitro, which I've had the old speckled hen before, but the nitro was not it was not that good. but but anyway, from there we went over to a new place called Bassline Brewing Company, which is over in the Sylvan Park area, right down the street from ML Rose. And I know you had a flight. I had a couple of pints. I think I had 3 pints, as a matter of fact. And then from there, we went on to Tailgate over in South Nashville, over in the Tanger outlets, brand new location that was over there. So kind of across town for us from Sylvan Park over there, but it kind of was closer to home.
Yeah, closer to where I live was the Tailgate. I will say, if you're going there, pack your patience as far as like traffic and stuff like that and parking. If you're going, of course, it's always only the second weekend, and it's not just a brewery that is there too. They have a lot of other different shops and things like that, and so people want to go. Okay, I got to get there. Well, we got there on Sunday. It was probably about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We had a great time there, but yeah, traffic backed up a little bit. It was more like the parking and stuff like that. That was a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, it was nutty. Tailgate would be the only reason for me to go over there.
There you go.
It is a mob scene. I don't want no part of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then moving right along, because we have a very special guest with us today, and I am going to let you introduce him since you're the guy who arranged this interview.
So we are lucky and happy and excited to have the head brewer of Bassline Brewing Company with us today. I don't know if you picked up my pun earlier about the baseline of food that we had to have at M.O. Rose.
Yep.
But Chris Dolan, and we are happy to have him. And we're going to talk beer here for the next, 4 or 5 hours. We got that scheduled?
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to midnight tonight. That's right.
So, Chris, welcome. We're glad you're here. Tell us about yourself. Tell us how you got to Nashville.
Hang on, a round of applause as these are very first guests on our podcast.
Guys, thank you for even just having me on the podcast. I'm actually really happy to be the first guest you guys have ever had. So I really enjoyed the first episode that you guys had that came out. So really happy to be here. How did I get to Nashville? I started my life in TV and radio, worked for ESPN, worked for Fox News, but I've always wanted to brew beer ever since I had my first homebrew kit. God's honest truth, my mom had a bottle of my grandfather's last beer that he ever did homebrewing, and it even had like the DOS paper label on it. And I literally was like, I want a homebrew. And he wasn't around to teach me, and I brewed one batch of beer, and I told my mom I'm going to open up a brewery and be a brewer. I think she thought I was lying, but I made sure that it happened. So back in New York, I worked for Blue Point for quite a few years, kind of cut my teeth there as my first full-time place that I ever worked at. Then I stopped at a place called Brickhouse Brewery that actually is owned by a cousin of Wesley Keegan down here, who owns Tailgate, which is actually a funny transition because I moved down here during the pandemic in September of 2020 to be the head brewer at Tailgate Brewery. I was there for about a year and a half. And I went to Disc Cider to be the head cider maker over there for about a year and a half. And now I'm here at Bassline Brewing Company.
That is awesome. Hey, tell me real quick, transition between brewing beer and brewing cider. Any differences there? I know the product obviously is different, but
I mean, it's really, I feel like it's 80% the same. I mean, it's great because there's no brew days, right? So a brew day, you're talking about you're clearing your whole schedule for the whole entire day. I'm brewing from the time I get in at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm leaving at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I got to worry about like mashing in. I got to worry about stirring the mash. I got to mash out. I got to get everything done. On cider, all that's gone, right? So take all the hot side stuff out. But then after that, it's 100% the same. Where it's same thing. Everything's got to be clean, but it's the same process on the backside. So when I was at Tailgate, I was lucky enough to start dabbling in ciders. I had a really good idea of cider because when I was back in New York, somebody approached me about being a cider maker while I was at Blue Point. So I started to dive into just the knowledge base of that. But at Tailgate, we were able to make ciders both at the Music Row location, which they do cider there. And then we did our big batches for Tailgate cider. And at the time, there was Prosecco cider that was mass produced in cans and kegs. So I had a baseline no pun intended, or maybe pun intended, right?
It's easy to do.
Of cider making, and so it was really fun, and it wasn't as big of a transition as I even thought it was going to be. The first couple of weeks, I was nervous as hell, but once I got my feet going, it was a really good experience.
That's awesome. How long have you been at Bassline? And how long? I actually, it's a two-parter, I guess. How long have you been there, and how long has it been Bassline? And maybe it's the same answer.
Yeah. So I guess I'll just go to how I even evolved just getting to Bassline, right? So like I said, I moved down here for head brewer at Tailgate, head cider maker at Diskin. But I told my mom all those years ago, not only did I want to make beer for a living, I wanted to open up my own brewery, right? So I actually started to get the itch for it. Me and my wife really talked things through, and we said, all right, let's do it. Let's finally do this. And we actually had a friend that, it was only my inner circle of people knew that I was looking to do this, because I was trying to keep it very quiet. And my friend approached us and said, hey, just so you know, there's a brewery that's up for sale. But I didn't know who it was. I had to sign an NDA. I had to do all the things to just get through it. And I was like, hey, if we can have a turnkey, I can start producing beer so much quicker than if we start from nothing. And it turns out that it was the old Bold Patriot location. So went through the process. Was looking to actually acquire the whole entire building, all the assets, everything, where they're taking over the lease and everything. I met with two of the four previous owners, because they had a split. The brewers had left, and Walt and Janet had stayed behind. They were doing all the front of the house at the old location. Met with them. Everything was kind of cool with them. They liked the idea of us taking over the lease from them. I met with the landlord. I had a lot of work I wanted to do on the facility. I didn't get the green light on everything that I wanted to do, so I left that meeting going into it, literally thinking I guess I'm going to give Diskin my notice tomorrow, and we could potentially have a brewery in a month. Turns out I wasn't going to get the clearance for everything or the sureties of it. So I actually walked away from that to pursue other options. And about 2 weeks later, Janet and Walt, they approached me and said, hey, we don't have a brewer anymore, and we don't think we want to sell anymore. What if you came on to be our brewer and we do this venture together? And I was like, you know what? I would love to come on and be your brewer. So that's the really long road of how I ended up at Bassline. And then they came up with a new name that they wanted to, and they said, you're going to take care of the back of house, meaning the brewery, you take care of all the beers and everything. We'll take care of the front of house, and we'll start this new brewery together. So that's how Bassline was kind of evolved. And Janet, her daughter, is actually an up-and-coming country artist here in town. So there was a musical theme already in their lives that just naturally transitioned to creating this. There's already a stage at Bassline, so music is just a natural evolution that kind of fit in.
That's awesome. It sounds like, as the old saying goes, timing is everything for you.
I mean, listen, it sounds like such a cliche, right? This is going to sound like the ultimate, I can't believe you just said that, but everything in life happens for a reason, right? I hadn't taken the shot at actually going that next step ever. I've always thought about it. I've had opportunities come to me before, and this was the first time we actually followed through on it. And then when we thought it was all over for us to do anything in that location, listen, like I said, wild things in life happen, and this is just one of those stories where I'm just you never know what's going to happen. You never know what tomorrow is going to bring, and it's kind of a cool story.
Yeah, and with you having, what do you call it, the backside or the back end of the facility of the brewery, do you get to make kind of most of those decisions or all the decisions? Hey, what we're going to put on, what we're going to make, the styles we're going to make, those kinds of things.
Yeah, so it's a great thing, because at Bassline we have 20 tap lines, right? So that's a lot more than a lot of average breweries when I was at Tailgate, I was used to having up to 32 tap lines at some of those locations. So I was used to large production. When I was at Brickhouse Brewery in New York, we had 16. So I love the idea of having tons of tap lines to do a little bit of everything. So they've given me carte blanche to do whatever I want with those 20 tap lines, which is really cool because that creative freedom as a brewer, like I'm always inspired by things I see in the grocery store, things I see on TV, cooking, eating, trying other beers. So like 20 tap lines, it sounds daunting, but to me it just sounds like a brewer's playground to just do whatever is new. Like I also try to kick it old school sometimes. So like I get to have like anything and everything, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I noticed you've got multiple styles, obviously in beer, but I think you had a seltzer when we were there last. Were seltzer, a cider, or something too? So you've got some different variances for people that don't necessarily drink beer, want to go into a brewery.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is, um, previous in life, I've had friends that are celiac. I still have some really close friends from New York that like they're celiac, so they can't have certain things. So with if I have 20 tap lines, my goal for baseline, and it will be this way, and I'll always see how it evolves over time. But if I have 20 tap lines, I'm going to take all my experience of everything I ever did, and my goal is 16 beers on draft at all times, two ciders, two seltzers. So that way, no matter what you're looking for, you're going to find it. And then the best part beyond that is, as our new kitchen evolves, like you're going to be able to get wine, you're going to be able to get cocktails. So like when you come in to Baseline, if you can't find what you're looking for, at that point in time, I really don't know what to tell you. We're going to hit all those marks.
I think that's a good point because we have talked a little bit on our first podcast about a lot of these breweries, tap rooms that have really expanded because it's a big business, it's a big deal, and you don't want to just have a small demographic. You want to try to appeal to as many people as possible.
Yeah, and it's wild because like I've been professionally brewing full time since 2015. I've been apprenticing at breweries since 2009, and back in 2009, like it would have been a wild, far-fetched idea to have like anything other than beer. It used to be like you would go to a brewery tap room and it was just beer, and this brewing is always evolving. If you ever stop trying to figure out what's happening in this community, you're just going to get lost in the shuffle. And as the world's changed, it used to be like, hey, just go in there. There's going to be no food. There's just going to be just beer. But now it's like it's the full gamut of everything. When people come in, they're expecting, hey, you got beer, but do you have food? Do you have another option for us? And I I want to create an environment that is just so inviting for everybody that it doesn't matter who you are. If it's a group of people that want to come in and just drink seltzers, that's awesome. We're here for you. Like, and it's gonna keep changing. So I can't wait to see like 4 years from now how different things are even going to be 4 years from now.
Hey, can you also talk about because we came in there on Sunday. Scott had been before. I had actually been a couple of years ago under another name, but you have TVs in there for sporting events, watching, and we were sitting there watching the NFL games and things like that. So that's certainly appealing for people who want to come into your brewery as well.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we're trying to create an environment where we're a brewery. When our kitchen launches in a few weeks, like you're going to be able to come in, you're going to be able to eat, but we have 9 TVs in there. So, like, part of it is like come in here, watch your sports. We're going to have live music on the regular. So, it's going to be a live music venue as well. And I think that interactive part of not always being the same thing every time that you walk in there is kind of really important but if you want to do your sports, like, hey, I'm from New York. I would love it if that place actually became like a Jets watch bar, right?
Yeah.
We could all just join up and we can commiserate, and just like hate ourselves and hate watching the team because that's all it is as a Jets fan for it. But like, it's that evolving tap room experience that we're going to have.
It is cool, and I'll talk about the space for a minute. It's, if anybody had been previously, it's big, a lot of seating inside. It's in that L&L Market building, which has got other food options and retail, and I think there's a milkshake shop and all sorts of things in there. But you've got a shared patio space out there too, which is really cool. I think it's shared maybe by everybody.
So there's actually 2 patios outside. The main patio that's right off of our door is exclusively just ours. So if you want, you can go outside, and we have 15 tables completely outside. There's some reimagining that's eventually going to happen for that area. But then there is a shared patio space below for the rest of the market, or overflow from our patrons.
And so for people who are listening to this podcast, they live in town or they live out of town, what's your address, and how do they get to your location?
Mm-hmm. That's right. So it's 410 39th Avenue North. It's Nashville, Tennessee. It's 37209. We're kind of nicely situated, right off Interstate 40 on the south side of town. You can kind of get there from 2 different exits of exit 40. So you could be going right around downtown, and you can take the Charlotte Avenue exit, or if you're going all the way back around, there's actually, depending upon which direction you're going from, there's 2 different exits over there. But you can find us on Facebook, on Instagram. Check us out on our website. But it's inside the L&L Market. We are on the back side of the market, so when you are driving down Charlotte, you actually don't see us from the street view, but we are right around on the back side of the market.
And plenty of free parking back there too, which is pretty important in this town.
Absolutely.
I was going to say free parking is few and far between in this town. And I know we are right on the skirts of that Sullivan Park area towards downtown. So plenty of free parking. If that parking lot really is full, we do have a paid extra lot right on top of the free parking lot. So there's always parking over there.
Yeah, it's a cool spot. I really like going over there. So one of the styles, and I mentioned this to you in one of our emails, and it blew my mind. I was there not Sunday, but last week, and Tavis was working, and he said, "Man, you got to try this this classic West Coast IPA." Oh, okay, I know West Coast IPA is great, and it comes out, and it looks color-wise, it looks like your standard IPA, right? Color-wise, and you taste it, and it's hoppy, and my mind is still blown that this is a West Coast IPA. And you kind of know what I'm talking about, right? It's not that hazy yellow look. It's the complete opposite of that.
Yes. So when we were talking before, the fact that I have 20 tap lines, I want to do 16 beers. I said, I want to do all the new stuff, but I also want to be able to kick it old school at the same time, right? So when I was, even before I started homebrewing, I was a huge Dogfish Head fan. So 60-minute IPA, 90-minute IPA were a huge portion of my life. Arrogant Bastard from Stone was the other thing. I was a hop head back during the hop wars. I know there's a lot of people right now that are just what the heck is he talking about? But back in the early 2000s to the mid early 2000s, every single beer was how hoppy can we make this? How many IBUs can we pack into this beer? And I grew up on that, and I loved those IPAs. And things changed to the hazy IPAs that are more predominant that we're drinking now. But even then, the West Coast style has evolved into a completely different style of West Coast IPA nowadays than that old school style. But man, I want to selfishly brew for myself sometimes, as crazy as that sounds, right? So what do I want to drink all the time? And if there's 16 draft lines up there, I feel like I can have one, right? So one can be something that's mine, pride and joy that I just want to drink all the time. And that beer is really inspired by 60-minute IPA, 90-minute IPA from Dogfish Head, and Arrogant Bastard, where it still has those crystal malts. So I got used crystal 40 malt, so it gives you that darker color to it. And that whole idea was intense hop bitterness, but that's balanced out by a huge malty backbone that gives this experience that you don't really find in IPAs anymore. And it's something that's near and dear to my heart. And I hope that I can always have something that harkens back to my early drinking days that inspired me to get to this point here, sitting on this podcast with you guys. Like, what got me here? And if I can share those old moments, like it's drinking in a time machine, that's great, because we'll still do all the new stuff. But I want to make sure that there's something that I want to be able to trigger somebody else. So if you come into the tap room and you literally say like, holy hell, I haven't had a beer like this in forever, but this brings me back to that moment in time. You're transported back to some other bar or somebody's house, somebody's back there at a barbecue or a sporting event or something. So that's the real story.
Not to interrupt, it seems like, though, that's a pretty important thing, to have an identity for your beer.
Yeah, like it there are some people that will say, like, for brewers, they'll start to feel like there's like a signature that like kind of runs through all the beers. And the huge thing for me is like bringing you back to those moments. Like even on my dessert style beers coming out in a week or two, there'll be a s'more stout where like my idea is like when you take a sip of that, I want to transport you back while you're taking that sip, almost to like biting into that s'mores at a campfire, where you can just transport people to those moments in time in their life where it's just like, holy hell, this is delicious and this is awesome. Like how you're just playing with people's minds like that.
Going back a minute, when you said that you're bringing back some of these old styles, or you want to make, and some people might remember those, they're going to be brand new for some people too. Like that's going to be, people that probably like me in the last, say 10 years really kind of get into the craft beer and didn't, I knew it from that point on and didn't know about the stuff before that. So It's going to be like a whole new, not a genre necessarily, but a whole new category, just brand new beer for people which technically was a classic beer.
Yeah, and that's exactly what California Love has done at the brewery. There are so many people that are just like, I've never had an IPA like this before. But that's because, like, you never know when that person jumped into the craft beer game, right? Because, like I said before, this game is ever evolving all the time, right? So, like, even there used to be, like, that classic West Coast style IPA, and then we kind of went more pale ales, and then for a hot second, the black IPA jumped in, and there's still a couple breweries out there that are making killer black IPAs, and we all thought that was going to be the next craze, and then it went away. As soon as it came, man, like that, it died off. And then like hazies came, and we all kind of thought like, man, this hazy thing's not going to catch on. And then that's it. Like the hazies have dominated ever since. Man, that's got to be like around 2016 is when they started to kind of appear. And then by 2017, they were everywhere. And now they're forever style.
Yeah, and they're both coasts, right? You got your New England and you got your West Coast stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just did a blog the other day on our website about what my individual goal is when I go into a brewery, because everybody has different. You want to go in and, hey, I want the IPA, or for me, a lot of times it's Oktoberfest. Ironically, when I went into your brewery over the weekend, I got a flight. And I didn't get the Oktoberfest, so now I got to come back to get it.
You call yourself a beer drinker.
But it is funny, though, because when I went in there and I did what I do a lot of times, if I go to a brewery that I haven't been before or I haven't been in a while, I may look at the first 4 or the first 5. That's what I want to get on my flight if I've not had it before. And I'm that guy.
Yeah, listen, I'm a flight guy. I'm a beer traveler, I even have a spreadsheet of every single brewery I've ever been to, and my thing is I walk into a place and I'm here for a flight or two, or sometimes I'll end up trying everything. One time when I was at Russian River, they had an option for a flight of everything they had, and it was a flight of 26.
Yep.
And it's crazy. They dropped like a metal cage down on the table with 18, and then they brought a serving tray with the rest of them, and they were just like, here's all of them. And I was like, I'm clearing my schedule for the next hour and a half while I work through this. But like, I want to try everything that every brewery has to have, because somebody's going to have an interpretation on the style that will reinvigorate me to that style because no matter what the style is, there's a range. It's not like you have to fit this box. And being able to have flights everywhere you go, you find what brewers think of that beer, and you find that signature that they have, and it's something really cool, really special. So like I'm with you where it's like I'm gonna find what I want, and I'm a flight guy. I always
Yeah,
am. Even,
definitely.
I'm sure I've pissed off so many other bartenders throughout my whole entire time at all the breweries I've ever gone to because I hate it if somebody says, "Oh, we don't do flights." I'm just like, "What do you mean you don't do flights? I want to try everything that you have."
Right. Right. I love the we don't do flights, but we do half pours. Okay,
Yeah,
it's the same thing, but okay, sure. We don't have a little fancy thing to put them in, but okay. That's
right.
it just means I'll just keep ordering two at a time or whatever.
In the beginning of this interview, you had mentioned like where do your ideas and inspirations come from, and you had really mentioned like you could be watching the Food Network, and all of a sudden talk a little bit more about that. I'm going, ta-da! I have an idea.
Right. So like, I mean, brewing beer is essentially like some people will call it like an art form. I really think it parallels cooking, right? So you're going to take this beer and you're not cooking in the same exact way, but how do I coax these flavor profiles to make X, right? So like there are times that I've literally like walked down the aisle of a grocery store and all of a sudden I just see some type of flaked coconut that I've never seen before. Or even just like I might taste something like a Thai peanut sauce and I'm like, can this go into a beer?
Right.
Right? And like I have a beer that's going to be released this coming Friday. I don't know when this podcast drops, so it could be out already, but uh so we're baseline. We're gonna have a big pun on musical songs, everything. So it's rosé inspired. I love Brett Michaels, so it's every rosé has its thorn.
Nice.
And it's
Very
really
nice.
it's inspired by rosé beers. Sorry, rosé wines. My wife is a huge wine drinker. She loves her craft beers, but she is a wine drinker at heart, and I love drinking a rosé. Right, so this is my interpretation on how do I make a rosé wine turn into a beer, right? So I think I got these fruity notes. So I'll just go through the whole process on how I even got into this one. This is probably the best example that I can give you, and then you can go try it. Um, it's got those fruity notes. It's got those oaky notes. It's something that finishes dry. It's wine, so it's a little bit higher on the ABV side, right? So I'm thinking, what malts do I want to use? All right, so wine is on the lighter side when you drink it, so 100% Pilsner malt. So 100% Pilsner malt, but wine is higher ABV than like your traditional like lower ABV beers. So I'm like, let's try to meet somewhere in the middle. So in my head, I came up with 7%. I think it's going to be 7.1 in the end. All right, so what are those fruity components in there? Because I don't really want the yeast to derive those flavors. I love those fruity notes that you get from a beautiful rosé wine. And to me, and this is really this is going to come to personal interpretation, but this is the brewer's signature that we were talking about. I always get like peach notes. I get raspberry notes. So I want to use peaches and raspberry to convey that flavor. And then, all right, I know that you get that oakiness, and I want a really dry finish. That oak is going to lend all those notes. So I'm going to go get some oak spirals, and then I'm going to brew the beer. I'm going to ferment it. I'm going to add the peaches. I'm going to add the raspberries, and then I'm going to age it on oak staves. And then it's going to create this up front. You get that aroma of like a wine aroma, but you're getting those fruity notes from that, and you're getting the sweetness up front from those fruity flavors, but it's going to finish completely dry on the backside. Right. So that's kind of like the process with a lot of beers like that I go through. Even like in the s'more stout that I'm about to release, like I think like something that a lot of brewers miss on it, but it's my brewer signature. You take that marshmallow, and what do? You roast it over a fire, right? So you're going to get some of those roasty notes, right? So I want to make sure you get a little bit of that roast from roasted malts. That's not too much, just a little bit to mimic that campfire part of that s'more. So I hope that answered the question in
No,
a
you have
long-winded way of
very
saying.
much
I
so.
want to drink it. When's it going to be ready? When are both of those going to be ready? We're going to be
No,
there.
I'm
So,
already thirsty.
yeah, every rosé has its thorn will be out this Friday, so that's Friday Jesus, I'm away this Friday, so let's just say this Friday is if you're listening to this and it's past November 10th, every rosé has its thorn will be on draft, and the 17th will probably be the release of the s'mores, which I don't have a name for yet, so but
I'm sure you'll come up with a good one.
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
I usually suck at beer names, but the theme of this brewery being Bassline has made this super simple for me. Like before this, like I would strike out and I would farm it out to a couple of my best friends and my wife to help me name beers at places I've been because I'm terrible at it. But all of a sudden, music puns, song titles, song lyrics, all this stuff has made it so much easier because of the theme that we have.
The world is your oyster now for
Well,
for
we do
beer
want to
names.
mention for people who are listening, obviously, we are talking to Chris Dolan from Bassline Brewing here in Nashville. And Chris, when you're talking about the beers and you're coming up with these beers, are you the guy that's going, once you got it done, are you the only one that's tasting it and getting it out there? Or do you have a group of other people that you also want to try before you put it on tap into your brewery?
So it's changed over time. So when I was back in New York, I was at Blue Point, which up until just very recently was part of the Anheuser-Busch network of breweries. We had a tasting panel there. You had to go through all this training just to get on the tasting panel, and we would meet every single day at 2 o'clock, and we would taste beers at different stages in production, whether it's just like early fermentation, mid fermentation, if it's sitting in the bright tank that's just been packaged. I'm at a very small place right now. I'm the only person that does anything at Bassline. I have a super, super, super big fault that I can't get over. I'm super critical on myself, and I have a very great palate. But man, when I'm sitting there by myself, it's almost like my palate just goes blank. Um, so I do rely on my wife and some other friends when I can't decide if something is good. I will let all of my inner circle taste it because I'm so critical of myself of every stage where people are like, "You're fine," and I'm just like, "Yeah, but it could be X," and they're like, "Yeah, but you're completely fine." So I'm always very hard on myself when it comes to that. But I do have an inner circle that even at a small place like Bassline that I'm saying like, "Hey, I'm gonna bring you a sample today on my drive home," or it's gonna be here. Like, come to my house and try it, or like before this gets released, like please come to the tap room and try it. So.
So, and for you, it's probably like something personal, right? You're putting out there before you put it out to the masses. You're like, okay, I want it to be good. And with that, your inner circle, you feel like they'll tell you the truth if you
Oh
think
yeah.
something's
Oh
off? Or
yeah.
you're like, okay,
See, and those are and I will cut people out of that inner circle. I'm not here. I'm not here for a yes because
Yeah.
because I always tell people if you want to get in this business, like it's not about me, right? I'm lucky enough that I'm at a place that has so many tap lines that I can afford to do a California Love West Coast style old school IPA and have be one of 15 things on draft. But it's not about me. I'm brewing this for everybody else. I'm brewing this for you guys. I'm brewing this for the people that are listening to this podcast right now. It's not about me. So what I actually think about the beer be damned. Like I need to know what the people think about this beer because I'm not brewing for me because if I was just brewing for me, I'd have 10 West Coast IPAs and then a bunch of lagers on draft if I was just brewing for myself. But I'm brewing for everybody else and I'm always thinking about is this what if I'm saying the beer is going to taste like X, hey guys, does it taste like X? Because if it doesn't taste like X, like I gotta pivot here and I gotta make sure it's the best product for you guys at all times. So if you're somebody that's just here to be a yes man for me, it's not you're not in my inner circle because I want unbelievably hard constructive criticism. Because what I also do is if there's something to change in the beer the next time I brew it, we're going to change it. We're going to make sure that we follow through on delivering the best beer possible every single time.
So I have a fun question for you. And
Okay.
Scott, go ahead. I think you had a question for him first off.
Oh, I was just gonna say when you think of one or create one, do you already have in your mind what you think it should taste like?
I always have in my mind what it should taste like, yes. But the brewing process is different every time. Like, there's a reason why really great brewers across the world will always give you their recipes because you'll never be able to recreate the same beer. So little minute changes happen and something's different all the time. So I have an idea in my head, but then it's literally like, okay, it's done fermenting. Is that exactly what I wanted? Do we have to do something different? If I'm doing an adjuncted dessert beer, like, okay, that beer came out just a little bit more chocolatey than I thought. Like, do we have to dial back the chocolate? Oh, hell, it didn't get as much chocolate notes from that chocolate malt as I thought. Do I have enough chocolate on hand to follow through on that flavor profile? So the idea is always in your head, and then it's the execution that you just got to follow through on afterwards.
Sure. Yeah, at least you know there's a goal that you're trying to fit in this box here somewhere.
And it doesn't matter what it is. It could be an Italian Pilsner. It could be a hazy IPA. The idea is there. It's just getting it over the goal line.
Sure.
So for the people who think that your job as a headmaster of a brewery is a pretty cool gig, what do you say to them?
It's all unicorns and rainbows, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, well, you just actually said the word. I always joke around that people think brewers are unicorns, right? We have this magical job that's got to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. Like,
right.
You get to drink beer all day. You make beer. You drink beer. After work, you get to drink beer.
You get paid for it.
All right, this is Oz. Let's pull the curtain back just a little bit. Here's what I would tell my staff at the bigger breweries that I worked at. We are glorified janitors. We clean, we clean, we clean, we clean. I tell guys all the time, you're going to clean so much for me. When you go home, don't let your girlfriends, your wives, whoever know that you clean so well, because they're going to expect that house to be clean all the goddamn time.
Yeah, right.
But like, that's what we do. Like today, when I was at the brewery, all I did was clean. I cleaned 2 tanks, I cleaned kegs all day, and then I scrubbed the floor. Like you clean all day. So people think that it's this. I'm a glorified janitor who happens to have the best job in the world, and I'm not trying to be offensive to janitors, like, but that's the best way I can describe it. Like, we really do have a great job, but when I say it's 80% to 90% cleaning, it really truly is. Like, and then even on brew days, like I don't have a rake inside of my mash tun. So like when I'm putting the grain up there, I'm stirring it with a wooden paddle, like to make sure it's all done. Yep. Like it's not as glorious as people make it sound out to be, but the end product is. And the ability for somebody to have a sip of my beer and then be like, yo, I love this, like, that's the payoff. But no, we're just glorified janitors.
But well, all that cleaning and all that stuff, all that makes that product good at the end of the day. And obviously the cleaning is, you don't want any contaminants. You know, it's not just to look pretty. It's got to be, you don't want anything bad to go wrong with that beer. And cleaning, sanitizing, all that stuff is so important. It's the most important thing, I would say.
If we don't do that, if we're not clean throughout our whole entire process, we can't make good beer. Period. Like it's physically impossible. So that's what we have to do on the front end. Otherwise, it doesn't even make sense to make beer unless you are committed to doing all of that work. There are literally days my wife, she asks me when I come home, she's like, how was your day today? And I'm like, in like 2 sentences, I'm like, it was good. I cleaned tanks all day today. And then she'll literally say to me, that's it? And I'm just like, what do you want me to say? Like, I literally like cleaned tanks and I listened to podcasts all day. Like, that was my day. Like, I wish I had more to describe. Like, I ate my sandwich and it was good, but like, that's it.
And by the
way,
Steve
and I are going to try to give you some more content for more podcasts.
Hopefully listening to Sullivan Touron breweryadventures.com. But anyway.
It's actually funny. I listened to your guys' first podcast while I was working in the brewery cleaning tanks.
Did you really?
Bringing this full circle.
Wow. We appreciate that.
We are honored.
We appreciate that.
Steve, we've been in a brewery. Our podcast has literally been in a brewery.
We're number one.
Just one.
So you've been tremendous just representing your brand, yourself, your beer. A question that I have, probably the last question that I have for you is, you mentioned really about what your immediate plans for growth are. Here we are, we're on today is November the 7th, 2023. Where would you like to be a year from now?
Wow. A year from now, we're reimagining the old space, right? So there was no kitchen in there. There was nothing. I would love for us to literally have the best elevated bar food of all time. So when you want to come in and you want to watch Will Levis tear it up for the Titans, like, you're able to do that while having the best wings you ever had, with the best sauce you ever had, while drinking the best beer you ever had. And I'm in such a tight space. Like, back there in the brewery, I'm trying to fit 15 pounds of crap into a 5-pound bag. But I want to make sure you can get that beer. Like, in 2 weeks from now, you're going to be able to start taking our beers home. And I'm hoping that throughout Nashville, you're going to be able to have our beers at some really good bars too. I'd love to see Bassline really take the space, elevate it to what it can be, and really be a staple of the West Nashville side of town.
I think
don't forget, by the way, you mentioned the Tennessee Titans. Scott is a season ticket holder to Nashville Predators, so when he comes in, make sure you have Predators games on. And during baseball season, if I could talk you into coming in there and watching Cincinnati Reds, I would, and drink more beer, I would really appreciate it.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not going to come and watch. I'm probably not going to put the Reds on for you, but I will put the Yankees game on. But
yes!
I will. And
that's okay. I'm generally just kidding.
And hey, but it's actually funny you mentioned the Predators. We actually just this week became an official watch location for the Nashville Predators. So you're going to be able to come in every single time a Nashville Predators game is on, unless we have an event going on. It will always be on the TV. The sound will always be on for it. Our staff will be wearing Preds gear. And then once the kitchen's on, we'll be able to do some great food while watching the Predators game. But we are an official watch location for the Nashville Predators.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We were there Sunday, and Austin sent us home with some stickers and some Pred stickers and pins and pens and stuff. I guess some promo stuff they give it to you guys. So yeah, that's a great thing, because when the Preds game's on, like, you're open till the game's over, right? Is it?
Yeah, listen, if the game's on a little bit late, we'll stay open a little bit later for everybody to finish watching that game. We'll always make sure that we we're closed at 8:00 on a Sunday, but if the Titans are going to be on Sunday night, we're going to stay open for that game.
That'll be fun. It's a great space. I love going there. So we got to get back real soon after Friday when the Rosé gets released. And are you gonna when you release them, are you gonna put something on social media? Says, hey, we got a new drop or something? Or
Yep. So we're always going to try to release our beers on Fridays. So you'll always catch us on social media promoting that week's release at some point during the week. Fridays will be our main days. If you're really on the in, and if you're listening to this podcast, usually I quietly put it on draft ahead of time. So you can, if you see the post on a Wednesday, typically it's already on draft, but the official release is on Friday. But that's only for insiders.
Okay.
And once again, before we wrap this up, also talk a little bit about, again, how people can follow you on social media and your location and things like that.
Yeah, so we're inside the L&L Market. Like I said, you won't be able to see us while you're driving down the street on Charlotte. We're on the back side of the L&L Market, but we have tons of free parking, which is huge here in the Nashville area. It's 410 39th Avenue North here in Nashville. But you can follow us on our social medias. It's Bassline Brews, basically is our handle for basically everything. And yeah, you'll be able to, they love to put my face on social media, so you'll see my face around there. I've already had people start to be like, hey, I saw you on social media, and I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but like it's kind of a cool experience. Like I said, we're always gonna have 16 beers, 2 ciders, 2 seltzers. We're about to launch our cocktail menu. Within the next couple of weeks, we'll have a full functioning kitchen. We are dog friendly. Once the kitchen launches, the dogs can only go out on the patio, but the patio's got 15 plus tables out there. We got cornhole going out there, live music, sports, some of the best beers hopefully that you guys think on draft, cocktails, wine, everything. We're your one-stop shop, and hopefully it's what people really envision a brewery here in 2023.
Yeah, that's amazing because, like, again, we talked about earlier, you can bring your girlfriend, bring your wife, bring the kids. They can have a drink if they want one. But and I was when we were in there the other day, I noticed that you got some Buffalo Trace on the shelf there too. I didn't quite get into it. It was a little early in the day, but so yeah, the full cocktail thing's gonna be nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think we certainly appreciate you joining us on our podcast today. Scott, do you have anything else for the man here?
No, I would say go check this beer out. It is check the place out. The beer is good. I had between the 2 days I went, I had every beer on there. Some of them a couple of times. Between the Italian Pils, that German Pils is really good too, by the way.
Yeah,
love that. I think I give that a 4 on Untappd. I don't give out a lot of 4s. That was a 4.
I enjoyed everything I had too, including the pumpkin. And like I said, I got to come back for the Oktoberfest because usually I'm a big Oktoberfest guy, and it was on the other side of the list. I'm like, oh man. But
that can't last much longer though, can it, Chris? The Oktoberfest?
You got about 2 more weeks for the pumpkin and Oktoberfest before those are officially gone. Oktoberfest is a huge style for me. I love my pumpkin beers. I love the one we have on draft. Next year we'll definitely have 2. All
right. Well, we certainly appreciate it today. We hope people will go to your brewery, and I'm sure they will. Like I said before, you have well represented yourself, and definitely appreciate you coming on as our very first guest on the Sullivan Touron.
You are going to be so damn famous.
About to skyrocket from this point on.
You are.
Guys, thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Definitely.
You won't be able to walk in Publix.
Well, good deal. Well, we're going to wrap it up here, but this is once again the Brewery Underground Podcast. You can follow us all the time. Scott, where can they follow us?
Sullivan, Touron, breweryadventures.com.